Next, let me just introduce our next speaker, John Dawson. John is co-founder of ScanmarQED, an Anglo-Dutch sales and marketing technology business. He's previously held roles at PhD and also at Accenture, where he led the marketing sciences practice. So welcome, John.
Thank you. Let's get that working. Right, thank you very much. Real pleasure to be here. I don't know how many of you know ScanmarQED. What we do is we help brands and agencies integrate data across from sales data to marketing data, market research data, and digital data. Bring that data together and then help them measure the effectiveness of their marketing and then optimize that marketing. So we work in quite a broad spectrum of industries and all around the world. We're very lucky. I'm going to talk to you. We've had a space picture. We had a picture of stars, and everyone uses the analogy of stars and looking up and seeing the stars, and that's kind of what we want to be doing with data. I grew up in London, and that's kind of what you see in London, right? It's a bit polluted. We have light pollution. We probably have atmospheric pollution that we don't want to talk about because where our office is actually is the most polluted area in London. So yeah, it feels a bit like that. And as an analyst, you know, we're trying to peek through the murky skies. We're trying to see what's there, and we kind of feel like, you know, there should be something big out there. And as a child, you know, I wanted to be an astronaut because I thought, well, it'd be great. You can go and see space and the stars. I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't really know what sort of true vision and insight meant until I actually had the pleasure of being in the desert at night one day. And I saw that. You know, this is the Joshua Tree National Park in the US. I'm sure people have been there. Absolutely fabulous. And that's really what great analytics can do. Great analytics can help you peek through and see just these wondrous things. Now, I guess the reason I'm telling you this is that, you know, over the last 15 years as an industry, we've had the pleasure of getting to really to know data, right? We're hearing all these things about the wonderful data we can get, the cookie level data, the integration of what people are doing, their behavioral lifestyles, if you like, with what they're viewing, all of it. We've got so many pieces of information about people. And I come to a conference like this, and there's just an amazing amount that people can do with data. I'm not talking to you today about artificial intelligence, machine learning. I've actually been using that now for around 12 years to help marketers, if you like, work out what's working and what's not. But I did want to talk to you about why we use data. You know, what's the benefit? And it's always good to kind of put some numbers, some context on data and what's the value of data. The best study I know on this is from this gentleman here. This is Erik Brynjolfsson. He is at MIT, and he did a study, I think in 2011, of 179 companies. That's a very precise number. So 179 different companies. And what he found was those who used data-driven decision-making processes within their business, they performed 5 to 6% better than their peers. So that's all things being equal. Those that really say our decisions that we're going to make should be, where possible, powered by data. What does the data tell you? That's a 5% or 6% improvement in their business. That can be a huge number, an absolutely enormous number. So it is worth investing time, it is worth investing the trouble in saying to ourselves, what can data give us? And what do we need to do with the data we've got? Because it's a valuable problem to solve. So at ScanmarQED, you know, we're very used to data. I've got, you know, my colleague Joel over there at the back of the room. He gets data from all around the world, from lots of different sources, and pulls it together and does amazing things. But I wanted to think about, you know, some of the issues we see around data. And the question I suppose I have is, have we solved all these issues as an industry? And I'm sure you know the answer already is no. But let's just think about some of them. So what considerations do we like to think about? Well, data granularity. We can be amazingly granular, right? We can figure out what you're doing across one device, what you're doing across another device. How do all these things pull together? There obviously is a cost benefit to that, and when we talk about data being, you know, our greatest asset or one of our greatest assets, it used to be people, now it's data. The problem with data, of course, is it goes bad, it goes stale, so we do have to continue to invest in it. But granularity, getting more and more granular, doesn't seem, for most of our clients, to be the ongoing problem. In other words, many people seem to think they've got there. And for me, it's a bit like the sort of camera megapixel debate we had. So if you remember, you got your camera phones a few years ago, it would be a 2 megapixel, 4 megapixel, 10, 20, whatever. We don't do that now. Cameras don't compete on that. They compete on image processing, other things that they can do with that information. I think granularity probably has gone that way now. The second point is accessibility. And this, we hear an awful lot, is still a challenge. And it's not because people in the organization don't have access to data, but it's because the data sits in 15 different systems, and you need 15 different logins to access that data if you want to make a decision from it. So how can you do that? Yes, there are different password solutions, and you can get systems to talk to each other, but the IT guys are going to go mad. It's difficult, but again, that's solvable. Quality, data quality, or IBM, I think, call this data veracity. They talk about their data Vs. And I think we've already heard, does the data that we have really represent what we think it means? That data quality issue is one that is live. And I think one of the problems with data quality that I've seen is that very often we look at data quality actually at the atomic level. We've got lots of different pieces of data, but when we look at one piece, we look at it in isolation and say, what does this one piece of data tell us? What does this one piece of data mean? Does it reflect what the system's meant to do? Does it reflect what the system's meant to tell us? I think the challenge is often that you need to look at data sometimes top down. You need to look top down as well as bottom up to get a perspective on data. If I give you a real example, we have a client in the telco sector. They have an awful lot of information in terms of what price, what promotions, what proposition they're putting to each of their individual customers. What they hadn't done until actually we sat down with them for a workshop was look at that data at the aggregate level, and what they figured out was, from a pricing point of view, the most sophisticated, the most advanced product they had also happened to be the cheapest product they were offering their consumers. In other words, they were doing such deep discounting, such deep promotion at the atomic level, if you like, to each individual consumer that they'd lost track. They had actually underpriced all their other offers. The really surprising thing is still a lot of consumers weren't taking the product. And the final one, data availability. In other words, do we have the data available to help us make the decisions? Do we know where the sales data is? Do we have even sales data? I actually think that is a problem that has been solved. That's something that over the last 10 years, I've rarely come across a client who doesn't actually have the data they need to make a decision. If it's an important piece of your business puzzle, you will have some data there. I've met lots of clients who thought they didn't have the data, and what we've been able to do is actually say to them, well, okay, let's sit down, let's think about it. Are there ways that maybe you can construct data, or you can integrate different data sources to find the data that you think you need? So I thought I'd give you a couple of stories there. Essentially stories about being smart. So my first example is going to come from an insurance company. This is a major insurance company in the United Kingdom. For those who don't know, that's an unbelievably competitive insurance market. I'm told that motor insurance in the UK has maybe more than 400 brands competing for your business. That is quite something. When we first started working with this particular client, this was the way that they thought of their business and organized. So they were organizing across 3 channels. They have a call center, so you call up, get your motor insurance quote, and that's that person on the right-hand side. In the middle, we have someone who goes online, goes to your website, gets their quotation, and then these guys turned up. We're all familiar, we have these affiliate websites, if you like, or these price comparison websites. So I put my details in once, and I get 300 different quotes back. And that's really saying, go to one place, get everything. Now, operationally, this business was running across 3 silos. And the reason I'm telling you this is because they were also effectively pricing as though these were 3 different consumer segments. And the real question this business had was, what is the impact of different pricing strategies to our marketing? In other words, is our marketing impacted by different pricing strategies? Now, and obviously to think about pricing is not really just an absolute problem, it's also one of relative competition. So what's my price versus my competitors? That's a really difficult problem to solve in insurance when you don't actually know what your competitor is going to charge for that particular customer. Everyone's policy is personalized. But doing a little bit of lateral thinking, this client was able to then look at these affiliate websites and say, well, okay, we don't know the competitive price, but we do know where we sit. What's our ranking on the website? Are we number 3? Are we number 5? Are we even number 1 sometimes? Are we the cheapest? And consumers tend to rank insurance by price. The truth, so they got this data together and they ran the analysis and they used some of our solutions to effectively work out what's working, what's not, and what's that synergistic impact between pricing and marketing. But the really interesting finding from this, the aha moment if you want, was that it was the same consumers. Right? Just by looking at the data in a different way, we're able to say that actually the price that you have, your relative price position on this website, also impacted your sales performance and your inbound performance on the other channels. That is really important, right? Because you make an assumption, a business model assumption about different silos, different sets of consumers. It's the same people. In other words, the consumers had learned the game. Another quick story, 'cause I know we took about time, and this is my colleague Andreas, who's at the back, tall gentleman with glasses. He had this really wonderful situation in Eastern Europe. So this is not just a kind of a first world problem, if you like. This is, something we see in Western Europe. This is in other parts of the world as well. This brand had this really interesting problem where they're an FMCG brand, they're doing lots of advertising, but they do not see any consumer sales data at all. What they see is sell-in data to the retailers. And the question was, well, how can we measure the effectiveness of our marketing when we don't know what happens to the consumer, or when the consumer purchases, or what they do with the products? And there was some really great lateral thinking here. They did this. They stuck some labels on bottles. They created competitions. And what these competitions allowed them to do was see when consumers went to the website, put in the tokens, and someone wins an iPad, but you collect a huge amount of data that shows you from factory, presumably through consumption, to disposal, if you like. What is the journey of the product? How quickly does that product move through the demand chain? So this manufacturer was able to very quickly construct sales data that wasn't available in market. They, if you like, constructed a proxy metric. This was really effective. These guys have been now using this technique for 5, 6 years maybe, very successfully, and they're using that to measure the effectiveness of their marketing. I know we're a bit pushed for time, so I'm just going to wrap up and say a couple of things. We know that data-driven decision-making is really impactful. This 5 to 6% improvement above peers makes it valuable. That should certainly make it valuable to everyone.
Still have 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh,
That's it.
okay. No stress. All right. So we know it's valuable. We do actually have a tremendous amount of data. You know, if you think about all the industries that are out there, we are kind of at the forefront of what is possible with data. And I can't think of many other industries. Financial services is obviously a good example where the speed of the transactions, the speed at which we're able to move data around, bid on advertising opportunities, it's amazing. We're pushing those technological boundaries. But there's still a tremendous amount that we can do today with the data. And what I've learned over the years is actually we need to be a bit braver. We need to think about what can we do with the data we have? Can we test it? Can we learn from it? And we can achieve more. So that's just on time.
Wow, better in time.
Better than time. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, can I say one thing?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to take one more minute. We were hoping to have books to give out. A colleague of mine, Glenn, wrote a wonderful book called Rain Dancing. We did get let down by our publishers, though. So if anyone does want a copy, fill out the card. I will send you a copy personally. And it's a really good read. And I would recommend, it's called Why Rational Beats Ritual. So get a copy. We're at the stand over there as well. We'll send one on to you.
I make €5.
Yeah.
So, any questions to our two final speakers about data? I think we all know exactly what to do with our data and everything is good. Or any questions? Peter, you've been sitting waiting all day for me to ask you a question.
Yeah, so
2 seconds, let's have a mic so people can hear.
thank you. So one of the things that we've been discussing with clients is who actually owns the data. Because when it's digital, everybody has a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And when we want to say to our clients, or our clients want to take more responsibility over their data, well, the thing is that they own the systems, but oftentimes I'm from a media agency, we still have access to their data. So are you experiencing that there are some discussions now as to restricting that access to the partners? So taking not only ownership, but also walling in the data, especially in a GDPR time?
Well, I think that I can answer you afterwards, but I think it depends a lot of the type of product. Us having two different kinds of products on our measurement product, it would be the license holder that had the access to the knowledge around the campaign data afterwards. So if the relation is with the media agency, then the media agency has that ownership and can deal with the client, or if it's the direct with the client, then the client has that ownership. Where it tends to become a little bit, I think it's a quite diffuse answer. There's data that's available in a platform where you can just buy it, it's available for everyone. I believe that we feel that we own that. If it was a data segment that was specifically created for a client, where we had interviewed a couple of thousand of people, created whatever intent segment and been predicting on that and distributing it somewhere else, I think it would be a different discussion. But there's many layers to the answer, I think.
Good answer.
I think from the perspective that we see, we don't own any data, right? So it's up to our clients to determine different pieces of data and the ownership of those. What I would say is that one of the reasons we started, we merged two businesses a number of years ago, MarketingQED and ScanMar, and I was co-founder of MarketingQED. And one of the reasons we started that business was to help brands internalize, if you like, their analytical capability, because they weren't at the time able to send the data out to consultancies, at least not within the spirit of, or indeed the terms of their agreements. So that was always a pain point, and we said, well, okay, we'll turn it around. We'll put the tools next to the data, rather than have these data issues and pipeline issues going to get in the way. So I think internal versus external is always one interesting dimension of that, and we can kind of solve it that way.
Final question, if any. Well, no?
Probably not.
But what did you want to be when you were small?
When I was small.
Like smaller? Oh. I don't know.
I think that when I was small, I think probably what I was really aspiring to be, I would say when I was very small, I remember that I really wanted to be the postman, the mailman. It's like,
that's not a bad job.
He was the dude. He had this car. He had, in Denmark, you have these red jackets and a cap. It's like, he was cool. Yeah.
What did I want to be? Well, I said earlier, astronomer.
That's true.
Astronaut rather. But I have to say the one thing. I had a flashback before I came in here. When I was a child at school, we started an astronomy club, and this is one for the data guys. I filled out membership numbers, 8 digits. I was not short of ambition. We were going to have that many members, so I did an 8-digit membership number.
Ambition is good. And with that, thank you.